two doctors were attending rock climbing courses. Suddenly they heard Omar continuously ringing the bell. Dr. Lou shouted Omar's name and ran to grab the rope, but Omar acted as if he didn't hear anything and let go of his hands, falling straight down. With a crisp cracking sound, both of his ankles twisted and broke. This left the doctors very puzzled. Omar was a rock climbing instructor. How could he make such a basic mistake? Even stranger, when he woke up from unconsciousness, he had no idea what had happened. Lou had to explain everything to him, but oddly enough, as soon as the doctor finished speaking, Omar asked again what had happened to his feet. This strange memory loop behavior immediately raised the doctor's concerns. Dr. Lou shared that Omar did not hit his head, but he seemed to be having memory difficulties, as if he was stuck in a loop. He also mentioned that Omar might have been experiencing the same issue before the fall, so Dr. Marcel suggested consulting psychiatrist Dr. Charles. Soon Charles noticed that the problem might be related to diet. He checked Omar's leftover sandwich and saw that only the tomato and lettuce were missing, so he looked up the nutritional values and discovered a severe deficiency in vitamin B1. Dr. Lou agreed, noting that eating disorders were not uncommon in the rock climbing world. Climbers had to rely solely on their fingertips and toes to resist gravity, so the lighter their weight the better. Now that they had identified the problem, the solution was simple. Through direct intravenous nutrition injection, Omar's symptoms significantly improved. For the sake of health, maintaining a balanced diet was essential. Blindly losing weight through extreme dieting could end up doing more harm than good. A man passed out in front of the stadium for the Bears. Several members of Chicago's first responders were enjoying a tailgate party there, so they were able to react when they saw the man in distress. The guy wasn't drunk, he didn't smell of alcohol or anything like that, and he did repeat something before he lost consciousness. He kept repeating the letters BRT. He could have been trying to tell them his name for all they knew. Dr. Manning checked him over and noticed he had an unusual wound on his leg. His skin seemed as if it had been torn open down there. It also looked like it was moving. The man was sent to the hospital. It turned out the wound was infected with a flesh-eating bacteria. It wasn't contagious, so the first responders were okay. Later, paramedics responded to a 911 call about a distressed couple, but unfortunately both the husband and wife were dead when they found them. The couple showed signs of the same flesh-eating bacteria as before, and this time it killed them. It was also a worrying sign because the paramedics had initially been told this wasn't contagious. The identity of the first infected man was discovered. His name was Stewart, and he was a college student. There was an incident across town in which a mother and her baby were both infected. They died within minutes of each other, and everyone had been too afraid to touch them in case the disease continued to spread. The authorities had to call in the CDC to deal with the rapidly expanding cases. The fire department received a call about a fire in a college building. They arrived quickly at the scene and discovered it had a basement lab. The same lab had the words BRT on the door. Kelly suspected this was what Stewart had been talking about. Many people were trapped inside the building. They had to break in through the glass interiors and then treat the chemical fire, which was showing up as green flames. It wasn't until they finished putting it out that they could warn the hazmat team. Kelly told them about the first victim and how he had been trying to warn them about BRT Health Industries. Chief Bowden eventually followed up on this by talking to a professor at the laboratory. He found out that the lab was responsible for biological research and that his team could have been exposed to the diseases they were studying. The firefighters had to be hosed down by the hazmat team before they could get out of their gear. It was the only way to clean them, and it could have very well saved them from bioterrorism. The police checked Stewart's belongings, and that's how they discovered he had been leaving threatening messages on the student message board. He even had a manifesto about an apocalyptic event, and unfortunately he became a suspect for bioterrorism after his death. There was no way of questioning him now. The police reached out to a girl at the lab who might have worked alongside Stewart. Suddenly the girl collapsed into her arms and she found herself covered in the latest victim's blood. A best man hosting his friend's wedding suddenly felt unwell. He vomited all over the bride. Soon the guests started experiencing the same symptoms one after another. Panic spread through the crowd as people scrambled to escape. In the chaos, guests pushed and shoved, causing the wedding tent to collapse. The bride and groom were buried underneath. Firefighters quickly arrived at the scene. After questioning the guests, they found that everyone with symptoms had eaten fish, likely due to improper refrigeration leading to mild poisoning. Just then the best man came running over in a panic. He told the captain that the bride and groom were still trapped inside. The firefighters rushed in and found them. The groom was trapped under 900 pounds of trusses and lighting. They tried to lift it but failed. Owen ordered the team to bring saws and gas masks. TK, confused, asked why they needed gas masks. Owen said, "Can't you smell it?" The firefighters used the saws to cut through the metal beams. The groom was finally rescued. The bride rushed over concerned and asked if he was okay, but suddenly she gagged. Everyone thought she had also been poisoned. The groom quickly clarified that the bride was a vegetarian and never ate meat. Mateo suddenly suggested maybe she's pregnant. The groom looked puzzled and said it can't be, that we're probably waiting until the wedding night. The bride suddenly burst into tears and admitted she was pregnant. The best man then turned to her and asked, "Why didn't you tell me?" The groom, confused, asked, "What does this have to do with you?" At that moment he finally realized the bride had slept with the best man and was now pregnant. As the firefighters wheeled the groom away, he shouted threats at the best man. Richie was digging the ground. His girlfriend Keisha eagerly stepped forward and offered to help. Without hesitation, she grabbed a hoe and started working, but as Richie walked away, the ground suddenly gave in and Keisha fell into the hole. Firefighters arrived quickly at the scene. They discovered that she had fallen into a septic tank and was in danger from the toxic gases. The captain examined the terrain and warned everyone to stay back as the ground could collapse further at any moment. He then ordered the team to lower an oxygen mask to Keisha so she could breathe fresh air. Next, he assigned Buck to rappel down and rescue her. Just as Buck was about to reach the bottom, Keisha lost her footing and slipped straight into the filthy water. Seeing the situation, Buck immediately signaled for the team to release the rope and jumped down to pull Keisha up. He told Keisha to hold on tight to him, and the team quickly tightened the ropes. Together, they were successfully lifted to safety. Fortunately, Keisha wasn't injured. Richie didn't mind what had happened and stayed by her side in the ambulance. Suddenly, Keisha blurted out that she was ready to marry him, but Richie hesitated and said, "I thought you knew. I'm already married." Keisha's eyes widened in shock. Without another word, she kicked him out of the ambulance.
Just wanted some space.
Ow!
The girl was so pitiful. Her workaholic mother was getting her wound treated at the hospital. While there, she complained to the doctor that her daughter Ariel never understood her. As the doctor was treating the wound, Ariel, who was standing nearby, suddenly felt pain as well. The doctor thought she was too mischievous. Her mother said she was already used to this phenomenon. It had been happening for several months. She had taken Ariel to see various gastroenterologists. She had spent a lot of money, yet no doctor could diagnose any illness. Since the patient had symptoms, she needed to be examined and treated, and they called in psychiatrist Dr. Charles. Charles had been suffering from arthritis recently. He was limping as he walked into the room. Sure enough, as soon as he entered, Ariel instinctively touched her knee. Ariel confided in Charles that staying at school was unbearable. She suffered from anxiety and irritability. She even had impulses to hit people. Sometimes she felt that her emotions didn't belong to her. It was as if they were someone else's. She seriously suspected that she had schizophrenia. Meanwhile, Ariel's mother had finished treating her wound. But after a long conversation, Dr. Charles still couldn't determine the cause of Ariel's symptoms. Now Ariel's mother was preparing to discharge her from the hospital. At that moment, the patient on the hospital bed suddenly deteriorated. His whole body convulsed. Seeing this, Ariel experienced the same symptoms. Her mother thought she was having a seizure, but after an examination, that wasn't the case. Dr. Charles observed everything and suddenly realized the truth.
She needs to be isolated now. I need an empty room now!
At that moment, Ariel's knee stopped itching. It turned out that once Charles's knee stopped itching, Ariel's did too.
I don't understand.
Through testing, they confirmed that Ariel had a condition called mirror touch synesthesia. This condition made Ariel feel the pain of those around her. The doctors then provided Ariel with several methods to reduce her sensitivity to visual stimuli. They hoped she could learn to protect herself. More importantly, they hoped her parents wouldn't only focus on work. They shouldn't use their own perceptions to dismiss their child's feelings. They needed to listen more. They needed to communicate more. And most importantly, they needed to love her properly. A thin steel rod was inserted into the brain of a 3-year-old girl, but her mother seemed to be very happy. This way, she could monitor everything her daughter saw in real time. She could even blur some scenes deemed inappropriate or bloody through the technology. Immediately, she activated the filter mode. Sure enough, the neighbor's dog turned into a moving blur in her daughter's eyes. Seeing such significant results, the mother was very satisfied. However, the chip in the girl's brain had serious drawbacks. At that moment, the grandfather had a sudden heart attack. He fell to the ground and couldn't get up. But in the girl's eyes, the painful appearance of her grandfather had long become a series of geometric patterns. Even the sound of his agonizing screams was blocked. Soon the grandfather passed away. However, she showed no emotional fluctuation, just coldly watching everything that happened. As the girl grew older, more strange blurs appeared in her eyes. At that time, classmates were discussing the plot of an action movie, but what the girl saw up close was just a blur. Seeing the girl's puzzled look, the boy quickly gave her a live demonstration. Unexpectedly, his mouth and arm both turned into a blur. Since then, the girl became more and more confused. One day, she made a bold attempt.